So, obviously, October 24th today. Thank you so much for joining us for the U14 to U19 Town Hall. We are going to be going over some pieces around what CMSA is doing as a whole, but also then some league-specific pieces and give you a chance to ask your questions and get some further clarity straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And really try and have an open and frank discussion as well about where we're going, what we're doing, and how we're trying to help out the game here in Calgary. So, firstly, we'd like to do a welcome and a land acknowledgement for everyone. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. So I see a couple of familiar names on the call tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jordan Stewart. I'm the CMSA Technical Manager. I'm the former Alberta Soccer Association regional coach for Southern Alberta and Alberta Recs director. So if some people have seen me maybe floating around soccer centers and wondering who's that guy, why does he just stand off in a corner and watch games? That's why. Just thinking, analyzing, and trying to piece it all together, really. Previously, my portfolio included the player development, district outreach, and coach education streams for Alberta Soccer, and a lot of that's dovetailed into my current role with CMSA. I've worked with players as young as 5 and 6 years old, all the way up through to university-age players, all across this province and a bit across this country as well. I've got experience working in grassroots clubs from where I'm from, which is up in Edmonton. I was running my own club up there as well prior to moving to Calgary here. I've worked with professional academies that are no longer with us, unfortunately, with FC Edmonton, provincial sporting organizations with Alberta Soccer, some youth national team development system work with Recs, and then some youth national team camps, college and university athletes and programs, some community outreach, and now finally I've completed the full circle outside of the pro clubs at a district governing body at CMSA, which I'm very proud to represent, and I'm very fortunate to have a role that can impact the game and give back to the game because it's given me a lot in my life. Originally, I was brought on to write a technical plan for CMSA for the 2021, 2022, and 2023 years. And that was back in about September of 2020. I wrote a massive plan that I didn't think I would be the one, the sucker really, that would have to implement it all. But here I am. I'm sitting here, and we're trying to make headway on a lot of different things all at the same time. The technical plan had 3 key areas, which were govern, develop, and grow. And so we produced this document that's our public-facing document. And I'd just like to try and give people an update on what we've been doing, where we're going, and what we're trying to do, at least within this technical plan. Someone's probably thinking to themselves right now, well, wait a minute, it's the end of October of 2023. What happens next? Well, what happens next is a new technical plan that either addresses the deficiencies in this one and we continue to build on those, or we continue to build on the work that we've already put down and try and improve and enhance those things in the next 3 years. That new document will be released early on in 2024, so everyone can have a look at it, they can see where things are going, and they can hold us accountable to that. As I mentioned, the second area of focus was around develop. You'll see a lot more pieces in there rather than the govern piece. And you'll see some things that are delayed. Some things like skill center and designated player program implementation plan to be developed in 2023. We haven't developed that yet. We've had some other club licensing pieces that have taken over our attention, and we've had to shift the focus there. You'll also see some parent pieces there in terms of a parent advisory council for CMSA and also a parent development series that have been delayed and we haven't gotten to yet. Unfortunately, we've had other things to kind of focus on and we haven't quite gotten there. And then lastly, you'll see in the grow section, this is actually far larger as in our internal document, but this is the public facing piece, that we've got a lot of things ongoing within the grow piece, and we want to continue to grow the game. We want to continue to solicit new membership and solicit different interests in the game through things like esports, through things like pop-up events, through things like school programs, to really build the profile of soccer and elevate and unite our community already. We always try to put the player really at the center of our decision-making process, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the player pathway that's in this country, but then also try to distill it down into what this looks like locally. So this is the image that you'll see across the country. The Canada Soccer's done a great job of compiling many different environments and many different scenarios and putting it into one graphic that is applicable across the country. You'll see that most of the time people start in these bottom boxes in terms of young kids joining the game, falling in love with the game, maybe having a bit of success, finding some friends, and sticking with the game. Ideally, you'd move up through them and then move up into these soccer for life boxes and train to train boxes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay a piece here to really explain where each kind of area of focus really would be for each of these programs or leagues or initiatives. So really, CMSA is operating at a stage 1, 2, 3, and 7. So you're going to say, well, why don't they operate 4, 5, 6 as well? Because that's numerical order. Well, there's other people and other entities that operate 4, 5, 6 for us and do a great job with those. You'll see the train to train stage in terms of those development leagues really is our AYSL, which is in place in Alberta. And then that would flow into programs like Rex, like the Cavalry program that's just launched, and any sort of Whitecaps MLS Academy programming. As they would flow up, they would go up into a youth national team kind of program and pro club academies, and then into professional and senior national teams. If players don't have a bit of luck, maybe they're not that dedicated, maybe they have different interests in the games, they can flow up into the Soccer for Life, which is our major league, our men's and women's leagues, and our co-ed leagues that are currently in place here in Calgary. Or you can go into that train to compete stage, which are universities and colleges, NCAA, our USL2 teams, our UWS teams, and then newly launched League One Alberta. You can see some boxes are definitely more congested than others, but each entity plays a role within that box. So even if it seems like there's 5 or 6 entities within one box, they all play quite a unique role in there. And really what we want to talk about tonight is rooted a lot in long-term player development. This document was released in about 2008, 2009, and has become a cornerstone of athletic development within Canada and has been used worldwide really to base other programming off of. Not just soccer specific, but a lot of other sports have looked to Canadian sports, long-term athlete development, which is what it's called in most other sports other than soccer, to base their programming off of and to find what a better practice and a bit of a framework is to base their programming off of. You'll see this document is showing a little bit of its age, for sure, but it's still kind of that cornerstone and bedrock of where Canada Soccer has built their grassroots standards off of, which we are aligning to within CMSA. You'll see that each stage is outlined very clearly from a physical, technical, tactical, mental perspective. We call those the 4 corners of player development. And you'll see recommendations for their game structures as well in terms of the game formats, the squad sizes, durations, etc., etc. You'll also see areas of focus as well for each of these stages. Oftentimes, we don't operate in stage 6, but I wanted to give everyone an awareness there. You'll see recommendations for coaching licenses as well, in terms of who should actually be working with these these athletes. And then you'll see this box, this lovely stage 7 box. This stage 7 box is really where we try and get as many people to in the game as humanly possible. This is the core of what we're trying to do, is to retain people in soccer. And through retention, development happens. Through retention, further enrollment happens. And through retention, we can see progress in the game. So really, our goal is to get as many people through this soccer system and return them into an active for life or a soccer for life kind of stage, where they maybe become administrators in the game, they become board members, they become parents and their kids play, they become a referee, or maybe even they play in a men's, women's, or co-ed league within our local area. That's our goal. I want to make sure that there's just an awareness on this. I know that this is for the U14s to U19s tonight, but this is a document that's going to be expanded shortly. But it is something that, how do I put it, has really impacted how the grassroots game is delivered within Canada, and especially here locally within Calgary. When I say grassroots and I talk about players, I talk about U12 and below. When I talk about grassroots soccer, I talk about all of the amateur level of the game. So whether we're 16 years old or 18 years old and we haven't signed a professional contract yet, we are still a grassroots player. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a beautiful thing. So when I talk about grassroots players, it's that. When I talk about grassroots soccer, it's everyone that's amateur. And this is the piece I think that everyone has tuned in for. So I'm gonna stop for 1 second. I'm gonna grab a quick sip of water, pardon me. I'm gonna check the Q&A. It's a quiet group tonight, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe everyone's fallen asleep already, or they've just tuned me out. And I don't know, is it Survivor Night or Dancing with the Stars that's on? But anyway, we'll continue. We'll soldier forward. Every season we produce what we call our CMSA program handbook, and what this is kind of the league Bible, if you will, the CMSA document that all of the clubs use to base their registration off of and really disseminate information from. This is always available on our website, and I would encourage you to give this a review, to go back, think about what your club registration package looked like, and was it aligned to what this document was? How closely was it? Where were the gaps? Why were those gaps there? What questions can you ask to identify why those gaps are there as well? We're really trying to create this document to create clarity in the communication from Alberta Soccer to us, to the clubs, but then also to their members and ultimately our members, which are all of you. We also want to make sure that everyone that we speak with has an awareness of what club licensing is and really what its intentions are. You'll see a deadline on your screen that is long past. This deadline was communicated for well over 2 years and as 37 different criteria in terms of how we as a soccer system can say, here's a quality product and a quality soccer provider. QSP is literally the initials that Canada Soccer use, quality soccer provider. And these other organizations have no standards at all. You don't know what you're essentially enrolling your child in and what what they're about. Very basic standards for SQS, very simple. I'll give you an idea of one of the criteria. Does your club have a name? Literally one of the 37 criteria. Within this, one of the bigger pieces is around coaching standards and the required training. And we'll get into that a little bit later tonight, but all clubs were held to the same standard, including National Youth Club license holders. And really, this is where we're at today, and a good snapshot of where we're at. This is where things kind of shook out. So you'll see National Youth Club license holders who have had club licensing either instituted recently at that level or have been there since the beginning of it in Alberta. There's also 4 SQS holders that have been announced within Calgary. And a I want to say an overwhelming amount of non-licensed clubs currently. The non-licensed clubs have been given a deadline of October 31st to submit an action plan as to why they haven't completed those 37 criteria and what their plan is to have those 37 criteria completed by the end of the indoor season. Should they not have those criteria completed, they will no longer be members of CMSA and they won't be permitted to be playing in our leagues or won't be a part of our district anymore. This is the heavy hammer that's coming down. So I would recommend, if you are a member of one of these clubs, that you ask your club leadership where they're at with their club licensing application and what's taking them so long. This is about the people that have done it have been between 1.5 hours to compile all of the information to about 5 hours of work. That's all we're really asking for. And how does this all impact the coaches, which impact the players, and what does that mean? Well, what we have is we had from Canada Soccer, we had a modified safe sport roster and a full safe sport roster of coach training requirements that came down. This was an adjustment from when they had published the SQS and their grassroots standards. And really what we did is we went to our clubs and we said to them, right, what roster requirements for coach training apply to what age groups? And through a collaborative process with our clubs, we determined that the line sat between U11, pardon me, and U12. And that line really is about risk management and about the level of safe sport training that is required for coaches. I'll get into a little bit more on that in a minute. So all of the coaches that should be working with these U14 to U19 players should be full safe sport roster compliant. And I'll show you what that is in just a second. Someone's going to say, oh yeah, why do you need all of these courses though? Right? Why do you need all these standards for coaches? Well, we know that better coaches will produce better environments, and better environments will help produce better players. Because we know that and our surveys all show this, that no matter what the results are in the league table, there's a direct correlation between positive player experience and positive coaching. So what we're trying to do to monitor this, we're catching clubs really with some of their malpractice. And what they would do is they would put one person who's completed respect in sport in their club on all their club rosters to fulfill, and I'll use that term quite loosely, roster requirements. All the coaches that are listed and all team officials that are listed are going to have to complete the required training to be eligible to be on rosters. Now, team official eligibility affects match results. When team officials are not eligible, games are defaulted. And really, at the end of the day, the main control mechanism is through taking games away from people or controlling the actual game. It's not about the training environment. It's really when we influence the game, it influences and changes people's behavior. And so we've asked the clubs to do what is right, not what is easy. Do what's right. Provide your players the absolute best experience that they possibly can in a very short youth soccer career that goes by in a blink of an eye. And I'm sure if any of us have played, we can probably attest to that, because my body now, after 90 minutes, does not feel like it did when I was 15 and 16 years old. And we've also communicated to the clubs that their willingness to adhere to basic standards are going to determine their longevity in soccer. So these basic standards, these 37 criteria, and this basic coach training that you're now seeing on your screen is really going to be some of the key determinants to who sticks around with CMSA and who is not a part of CMSA in the future. And so what we've done is we've produced this image as part of our team officials handbook. This image really gets broken down into two sections. You've got this blue section, which is that safe sport roster requirement that we just spoke about, and all of these rainbow colored aspects over here, or these columns, pardon me, over here. You'll see for the U14s and plus, you'll see this. You'll see required for all team officials with check marks are a police clearance with vulnerable sector search. So we want to make sure that there are no people with criminal records and with potential child sex offenders lurking within our game. That's the bare minimum. And Respect in Sport. Respect in Sport Activity Leader is a course offered by the Respect Group and is available online that can be delivered at any moment. People sign up, they complete it, and they receive certification there. Then you'll see as you scroll across, required education for coaches and assistant coaches. This required education is make ethical decisions, which I'll talk about in a little while, making headway, which is around concussion recognition and concussion treatment, which is vital for our game and vital for the future of our game. You'll see rule of two training, which is ensuring that all communications and interactions with players are public, observable, and safe by adhering to a rule of two adults, two properly screened adults being present at all times. And then you'll see EAP training. That's emergency action plan training. So really what happens when someone breaks a leg on the field and an ambulance needs to be called? Do people understand the process to be efficient, to get an ambulance to there, and to get the right medical treatment as soon as possible for that individual? These are basic things that are going to ensure that our sport is safe and that the well-being of the athlete is put first, and that it's a safe physical environment and a safe psychological environment. You'll then see over on this side of the screen, you'll see Soccer for Life. You'll see a theory component, which is this first column, and you'll see a practical component, which is the second column. That is both an online theory course, how to coach soccer for this age and stage of player, and then a practical one, which is on field delivered with a learning facilitator that gives coaches some extra tools and info to put on better sessions and to interact better with players. You'll see here the little plus signs are recommended coach training, and we recommend that coaches working with this age and stage of player should have a C license. They should understand what those player needs are and how to develop them to their full potential. And really most of that comes alive through the licensing stream, and bits of it come alive within that grassroots coach education program, which is Active Start to Soccer for Life. All in all, we're looking at 20 minutes for rule of two, about 15 minutes for EAP, maybe 40 minutes for making headway, 3 hours for making ethical decisions. That's a big one, big hairy one, I know. Respect in Sport is in and around 90 minutes to 2 hours, and an e-pick is free. Simple. Soccer for Life is a 90-minute online theory, 4-hour practical session on field with a learning facilitator. So a bit more stringent and a bit more work to do, but we want to make sure that these environments are great for our players. And so talking about those practical coach ed pieces, I wanted to make sure that I shared this with people because oftentimes we have some difficulty getting people to enroll in the practical sessions. As you can see, there's obviously more uptake within Learn to Train and Soccer for Life, but very little at our youngest age group. So if you might have a younger child or know someone who does, has a sibling maybe, oftentimes your coach will not have any sort of practical on-field coach training. For us, this is going to be unacceptable shortly, and we want to make sure that these coaches are properly trained and give them tools to have a great experience as well within the game. You'll see that capacity isn't reached on any of those courses, and there's still loads of time to register for the ones that are even happening in a night or two. I can breeze over that. As I say, within that, we've created this roadmap to really try and help show coaches what's required and the steps and stages that you need to go through to be a trained coach. Everyone on this call is probably like, we're parents, we don't coach. Talk to us more about the things that we care about. Well, maybe one of the things that you care about is how CMSA builds the schedule. We know that it's just been released. We know that it was taken down shortly from a couple of errors and then republished there. And and a bit of a technical problem, but it's up, it's live. And I wanted to make sure that everyone has an understanding of the process that we try to go through, and how thorough we try to actually go through this schedule, so that when you decide to write an email that says, hey, this schedule is no good, or hey, we need to change this, or hey, you don't know what you're doing, well, at least now you have some context to be critical about. First stop really is the tier one declarations. Um, this is when we ask all of the clubs to essentially say, hey, who are all of your tier one teams? How many of them are there? And it gives us a sense as to how many teams are going to be in leagues, and what we need to do to try to balance out leagues as well. Gives us a few extra days to really try and get our ducks in a row and to have good conversations with club leaders to say, yep, those are totally acceptable. They'll have great games there, or you might want to think about placing them in a different tier based on some context. Then we take in team entry. So team entry is a day where clubs submit all of their teams to us, all of their tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four, their dev plus, all of their teams come in on, for this indoor season, was October 2nd. Then we hold what we call our Club Connects, and it's a league alignment piece where we bring in all of the technical leaders from around the city, from around the clubs, and we put up every single league on a screen, and we go through them team by team and say, is that team going to have a good, meaningful, competitive experience in that league, or do they need to move into another league? It also gives us an opportunity to see where leagues are quite short and quite small, and what we can do to move teams around if they're not even going to have competition within their league. So we can find them another level and find them another place that the technical leaders in the room, who really are the experts of both their players and of our leagues, can place the teams. There's 5,000 odd games scheduled in outdoor. There's no possibility that CMSA can make it to even 10% of those. So we rely heavily on our leaders and our technical staff and our clubs to help us in this decision-making process. And to be fair to them, it's a very collaborative process. There's times when they'll say that team shouldn't be there, and the person will say, well, this has changed or that has changed, and we'll see how it goes. And it's actually a fairly good process right now. Then we've got the team deadline. So we send this back out to the clubs after we compile all of that, and we say, right, did we miss anything? Did we screw something up? Is there any last minute changes that need to be done? And they send it back. We then try to slot everyone into preset play dates, but we don't know division sizes. So some things get moved a little bit. And we compare that to our field permits that we have. So all of our rentals from Calgary West Soccer Center, Shoaldice, Genesis, Calgary Soccer Center, and Macron, which are the 5 facilities that we're using, as well as, I think, Cochrane, Airdrie, and Okotoks this year as well. We use those field permits to really create the schedule and start to do that. We forecasted a 5% increase in total teams and registration from last indoor to this indoor. We were blown away. There was a 16% increase in terms of total teams and players that were registered. And now you can imagine, well, there wasn't a 16% increase in total field time and total field hours. So we're having to start to be very creative in how we can deliver an indoor soccer league and experience for players. And it's becoming very difficult. If anyone here has been a part of AYSL in the past, you'll know that 6 a.m. kickoffs on weekends are not ideal, far from optimum actually. And this is the I don't know, the point that we're getting to right now is we're literally running out of any sort of time at any facility to be able to schedule games. So I always put this plea out: if you know people who are looking to invest in facility development, if you want to write your city councilors and say, listen, it's not fair that hockey's got 72 rinks, 72 Zambonis, 72 fully flooded and air conditioned and concessioned and bleachered rinks, then I encourage you to start writing those letters to the city councilors as well. We then, into step 7, go to build the schedule. And two ladies, especially in our office, Kim Kerr and Rachel Hugh, have been tirelessly, and when I say that, I mean that, working between 60 and I think this last week was a 100-hour week for them to build that schedule for everyone and to then start to manipulate it to make sure that it is fine-tuned, to try to ensure that there aren't back-to-back games where Rangers and Villains play in that game and then they play again in the next game. Uh, and then, of course, everyone in Calgary loves to do tournaments, so much so that Calgary actually produces more travel permits than the entire province combined. So you can imagine with that level of travel, how much rescheduling has to be done, not even just for bad weather. Obviously, this infographics for both seasons, but just for tournament travel. Then we do it all again. So you'll see there at the bottom of your screen in the 2022-23 indoor season, we scheduled almost 5,200 games across 60 divisions. I believe our number is 4,500 right now without any of the grassroots league games. So we're right and around that yet again, and there's a lot of footy to be played. I'm going to take a quick second here to check. There was a question in the Q&A there that just said, will the slides be available afterwards? What we do is we record all of this. We then post it onto our YouTube so you can go back and rewatch it. I'll make sure that we have it sectioned off so that you can accurately find the information that you're looking for quickly and efficiently. There's another question here that just says, will CMSA cap the number of teams allowed into the league given the limited field space and lack of availability? It's an interesting question. We operate under the fundamental premise of accessibility and inclusion. So we don't want to turn people away from the game. But it's getting to a point where we're going to have to start to make decisions on how the league operates, on number of games, on facility locations as well. And to give you an example, we're starting to think about, is there a way that we can rent out indoor driving ranges and host games in indoor driving ranges and things like that to try to meet the demand for the game, because we know that in the lead up to 2026, when Canada hosts a World Cup and after 2026, this game's going to continue to explode. So we need more facilities as quickly as possible. And I know that was a question that was asked in the preamble to this. So I can get into that. There's also a question here, could games be scheduled later in the day? Last season, we were at fields in the afternoon and there was no teams on the field. Our game ended. Not sure if the fields were available. Yeah, it's a great question. What I would encourage you to do is if you ever see a field that is empty, send us an email. We try to take as many permits as we can to facilitate our league, and then we actually give permits back to the city that aren't needed if that's actually the case. Typically what happens and what you'll see is other user groups, you'll see ultimate frisbee, you'll see football, you'll see CUSA, women's, etc. There's many other user groups that have field permits, obviously, in these facilities, and if they're empty, maybe someone has booked it and not shown up. That just essentially flushes a field down the toilet and is a waste of time for everyone. So while it looks like we own all of these facilities, we're actually tenants in every single one of them except for Calgary West Soccer Center. That's the one that we own, and we have a management company manage it and look after it for us. But all of the others, we are tenants and we have rental permits in order to be there. So great questions. I hope I've answered them. If not, just repopulate in the Q&A and I'll continue to work through them as we go. You'll see in your leagues, you'll see players who you'll go, wait a minute, that kid's not an 06, that kid's not an 09. Likely what they've been is they've been bio-banded. And what biobanding is it's the process of grouping players and athletes on the basis of their attributes associated with the growth and maturation of themselves rather than their chronological age. So children of the same age, they can vary significantly in their biological maturation, with some individuals maturing in advance or in delay of their peers. You'll see the typical David and Goliath, and you'll go, wait a minute, those two are both 14 years old, right? Puberty is a weird and wonderful thing to teenagers. So what we've instituted is a league-wide and district-wide biobanding process and biobanding initiative where if your child is maybe physically underdeveloped, they have the option to actually play in a league that might be more suited for them physically. Playing down is completely normal and accepted across the world. In fact, when you play up, you're also biobanded up, except the biobanding criteria in that is either your size, your weight, your physical ability, or maybe your technical tactical skills. So we're actually allowing players to be biobanded down and up. Our process is that the clubs all fill out a form for us so we can keep track of who has been biobanded. They're also due to communicate with all of the opponents within that league and say, hey, I'm Calgary Rangers, the U15 Tier 3 boys. We have 2 biobanded players on our team. As an act of accountability, an act of transparency, and an act for really the community to have an awareness and be able to police themselves. In the few years that this has been instituted, we've received a few complaints, we've investigated a few, and honestly, we haven't had to lay the hammer down on any clubs or coaches yet. We feel like this process is working. It's allowing players more opportunities to play, and it's allowing them an opportunity to play at a level that's appropriate for them. This isn't a riot act. I don't want this to sound like a riot act, but we always dictate the kind of conduct and culture that we exist in. So just some basic conduct expectations for everyone on this call. Can we be respectful? Can we be supportive? Can we agree to disagree at some points? And can we try to put the culture of the game and a positive experience for our kids first? Because at the end of the day, we all set the standard of what's acceptable and not acceptable, both in the stands, on the pitch, in the parking lots, heck, even in the pub afterwards. And I leave that image on the screen because really there's no point in wrestling with a pig. You get covered in you know what, and the pig actually enjoys it. So can we have a respectful, dialogue and a respectful environment of which we can exist in? I'll talk quickly about some of our bigger initiatives in terms of what we're trying to do as well. In the women and girls space, in terms of attract, retain, and progress them are our 3 key strategic objectives. We're putting on coach education that's female only and targeted at that age group that young girls are dropping out of the game. We're also putting on subsidized referee education for girls and for young women. We ran a female-only entry-level course, which we had 20 young women go through, which is amazing. So we're going to have 20 more minimum female referees within our referee pool to be role models to young girls within the community as well, and to give them opportunity to pursue the game at a different avenue and through a different avenue, really, that you can progress through and make a decent career out of at a good level. And also Free Soccer Fridays, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but we're trying to plan an Empower Her, a female-only drop-in soccer night as well. From the referee space, we've put on extra entry-level courses, including that female-only course. You will see about 150 to 180 brand new referees taking the field in about 4 days. You'll see them hopefully with their teal shirts on, just like the referee that's pictured in the side of your screen. You will see them making lots of mistakes. You will see them learning the game You will see them trying things. You will see them maybe blowing the whistle in front of 45 people for the first time in their life. Please be gentle. Please be gentle. We're begging you and pleading with you. Please be gentle to these people. These are kids trying to save up money for their first car. These are people enjoying refereeing, and they actually do enjoy it. I think it's crazy, but they do enjoy it. Um, and please don't take the enjoyment out of the game for our referees. The Teal Shirt campaign, as I've kind of already talked about, is really our initiative to acknowledge that they're first-year referees and they're going to make mistakes. And so what we try to do is we try to wrap that up in a mentorship program where we pair them up in groups of 4 and 5 with a mentor, with a seasoned referee who can lend experience, who can connect them with the social side of refereeing, and who can help them with their own refereeing development and own personal development along the way. You'll see in the mentor's hand a clipboard and a sheet of paper. Really, that's that referee's individual development plan to say, hey, you've got an unbelievable way of communicating. Here's a growth area that we need to be working on when we're communicating, and really try and help these young people and these new referees progress through refereeing and also to progress in their life. And you'll also see on the bottom of your screen a zero tolerance policy incoming. We're taking a really hardline stance on referee abuse and the effects of that. So we will be publishing that likely in the indoor season, and likely increasing the discipline and sanctions associated with abusing referees. If you're a coach on the call, or if you know a coach, if you live with a coach, please encourage them to take advantage of some of this free education. This will save you a ton of cash, really, and give you some good knowledge to be able to produce a better environment and enhance your players and also your own coaching experience. You've got basic mental skills, you've got planning of practice and teaching and learning, which really are foundational pieces to what coaching is about. And then that second one there is make ethical decisions, which you saw earlier is actually a requirement for all of the coaches within U14 to U19. So I would ask your coach, have you done make ethical decisions? And if they say no, well, it's free until March 31st. Otherwise, it's going to cost you or your club $45 or $85 after that, depending on which stream you choose to do. I'd also love to mention our Free Soccer Friday initiative, which is a drop-in soccer opportunity. It is unstructured, the environment. There aren't adults there to screw it all up and to organize it all for them. And we're really trying to connect the community together. We're trying to help these kids develop both social and life skills through the game, because it's not easy to go up and walk up to someone and say, hey, can I play with you? My name is Jordan. Can I play with you? That's pushing a lot of kids outside of their comfort zone right now. That's difficult for them. And the successful ones in the future are going to have those kind of communication skills, the empathy skills, the emotional intelligence, to be successful people. And so we want to help them through a very unstructured environment. We also know, and research is showing us that when we talk about elite player development, the absolute top professional level players, we know that there's common threads into how they're developed. And some common threads are access to facility and access to mixed age play. So the vicarious learning that happens when an 8-year-old's playing against a 12-year-old or with a 12-year-old is actually a beautiful thing. And some people will say, well, that's not really a safe environment. That 12-year-old, if they collide with the 8-year-old, you're totally right. It's not 100% bulletproof safe, and they're not wrapped in bubble wrap. But what they will learn from things like that is valuable physical literacy and movement skills to avoid that the next time, to roll when they fall, to learn how to absorb that contact. And they're going to learn tricks from those older players to be able to implement. Now, I'm talking to the U14 to U19 group here. I'm not sure there's a lot of U14s to U19s who come out to this, but tremendous opportunity for them to come out and work on something on a Friday night and be able to be in control of their own development. There's 3 dates upcoming, so we moved this around the city to be as accessible as possible. And it's November 3rd, November 10th, and November 17th. You'll see the locations there, and there's always more information on our website at calgaryminersoccer.com. Going to take a quick drink here and give a quick look to the questions. None in the Q&A. Oh, there is one being typed in the chat, so I will go through another slide or two, and then I will come back to that. So what does the indoor league structure look like for your children and for yourselves? Well, we've standardized what it is, and it's going to be 14 games. You'll see the word there, randomized. What randomized means is, well, 14 games, if you were to play everyone once, you'd need a division size of 15 teams. What happens when there's 9 teams and you need to play 14 games? Well, you're going to play 8 games, and then you're going to have a randomized schedule after that. Someone on the call is going to go, well, wait a minute. How do you determine a league champion if you don't play each other back to back or an equal amount of times? Well, there's points percentage and there's other ways of determining league champions and such. However, not the end all be all, my opinion, of a youth sporting experience. And I'm sure that there are people on the call and people in the community that would love to debate me for hours on that one. You'll play in a 7v7 format. This 7v7 format, there are laws of the game that have been modified to meet the 7-a-side format for our U12 plus age groups. Those are all available on our website, and I would encourage you to give those a quick view and to really understand what the laws are that are governing the game in between the white lines. You'll see your games taking place at Shoaldice, at Macron, and at Calgary West Soccer Center. You will not see any games, or you shouldn't see any games, at both Genesis and the Calgary Soccer Center. You'll also see a new initiative at the end of the season called the Challenge Cup. Really what that is it's a playoff format in terms of a Final Four, which you'll see first play fourth, second play third for another trophy and to get an extra couple of games in as well at the end of the year. That Challenge Cup is brand new this season. We're going to see how this rolls out and how this launches. And then, of course, we'll modify from there as we see fit. And then lastly, you'll see provincial qualifier cup competition as well for provincial competition entry. People will ask me, well, shouldn't just the league winner go to provincials? Well, potentially, yes. But what that does is that turns every single game into a must-win game. That turns every single time players are on the field into a pressure-filled activity. That turns every single time players step on the field to an opportunity for coaches to shorten the bench and just play the best players, not all the players. So we've removed that provincial competition mechanism out of our league offering and developed a separate offering for that. And before I get into that, I'm just going to go back and check the chat. A question from Jackie Weber that says, will Whitecaps training still be available in Calgary, or has that been discontinued due to cavalry training now? The realities is Cavalry has signed a partnership with Alberta Soccer to operate their, I guess, high performance programming. The Whitecaps were the former service provider there in an agreement with Alberta Soccer. And while I'm not going to comment on the agreement or anything like that, just because I don't have details or work for any of those organizations, so it's completely unfair of me to comment on that. What I can say is the Whitecaps still have opportunities to operate across the country based on existing relationships with provincial governing bodies and districts and even clubs that they have set up across the country. The Whitecaps still have a great opportunity throughout the country, and that's no different within Alberta. They're our closest MLS club, and I'm sure that they will be involved in some capacity in the future. What that looks like as of right now, I'm not able to really comment on now, but we will wait and see what that looks like from a Whitecaps perspective. There's also as I was talking about, the provincial qualifier cup competition. We'll continue with the live draw in the same process in terms of drawing those teams and making those bracket matches. You'll see here bracket matches to be determined and the finals to be determined. What we're trying to wait for this year is the indoor provincial format to be decided at the Alberta Soccer Special General Meeting, which is actually taking place this weekend. So if that sounds a little odd to you, trust me, it sounds a little odd to a lot of us that our provincial indoor competition format isn't decided yet and our leagues have already started. So we are going to look to be modifying that and changing that and putting a plan in place that solidifies things for a few years so that everyone can plan. That's why you'll see a lot of to be determines because we don't actually know the formats. Last year, Tier 4 was still in a boarded format, so we needed to run a boarded one there. Your U17s and 15s were on a third of the field, so we had to allocate fields for that. So we're delaying the announcement of those dates to make sure, one, we've got the proper fields, and two, we know the formats and can put on a PQCC that matches the provincials. The in-season seeding process will continue, so we will delay that seeding and first-round matches as long as we possibly can to get as much data and to get a good, accurate representation of who these teams are in this season, as opposed to using all of the data from last season based on that team name. There's always someone, usually numerous people, that'll ask the question, well, where does all the money go? Right? We pay all this money for soccer. Where does it go? It's getting to be expensive. It's getting to be difficult to have numerous kids in the game. Where does all this money go? In our program handbook, which is available on our website, we publish all of our fees for everyone to have a look at. And our CMSA fee is determined by the age group, as you can see on your screen. And our fee per player is $220 per player for these age groups. From that, comes out an Alberta Soccer fee, which we send to Alberta Soccer. And you can see that ASA fee on your screen there as well, of $29.40 all the way up to $31.50. So really what's left over within CMSA is on the left-hand side of your screen there per player. And that is your price per match day. Essentially, with those 14 matches, it works out to about $13.61 per game. Or $13.46 per game for the U19s. That's what your registration pays. Now, someone's going to say, well, wait a minute, my registration wasn't $220. My registration was X amount. Well, the rest of that stays within your club. And that provides a multitude of things, and it differs from club to club, but it's best if you have any concerns with that you take that aspect up with your club. Where does that, what was the number again? $190 odd. Where does that actually go within CMSA? Well, the vast majority of it actually goes towards booking fields, paying our referees, and other league-related expenses. It's really that simple. You can imagine $13.61 per player per game with referee fees and with a field rental being what it is now. It gets eaten up very, very quickly. There's also a small portion that goes to a facility fund contribution because there were numerous questions in the kind of submit a question as you register portion asking about facilities. So a small portion of each fee goes to help contribute towards both the maintenance of our current facilities and then also future projects and upgrades for facilities. So trying to do more domes, more year-round fields across this city. The quick math that I did about a year and a half ago was in order to play 11v11 games year-round with our U14 to U19 age groups, we would need 14 full field facilities running every single night of every weeknight of the week, going from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. and all weekend long from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. Those are 90-minute games. So when someone says, why can't we play 11 aside? Why can't we do this? Well, those are our realities. We're about 11 facilities or so short to be able to do that. And that's before a 16% increase in the game. There's also a small portion of the fees that go back as a donation to Kidsport. Kidsport is a program that funds Calgary soccer players alone to the tune of over $500,000 in registration fees. So we make sure that we support Kidsport because without them, there would be a ton of kids that are unable to play the game. And we respect and appreciate all of Kidsport's efforts to continue to make that happen. Alberta Soccer and Canada Soccer obviously take a cut of those registration fees. A portion of it goes into local referee development, which has been increased this year actually, and we're looking to try and address two aspects of refereeing. One is the quality of refereeing, and two is the quantity of referees as well. Our goal is to have 3 referee crews for every 11-a-side game by 2026. Now we have to bring referees through, we have to train them, we have to develop them, and we have to increase the quality of those referees within that time period as well. So that's where some of your fees go as well. And a small portion obviously goes to administration and making sure that Calgary soccer is reasonably efficiently run. It's definitely not 100% efficient yet, but efficiently run and continues to innovate. So like I say, I'm fortunate to be working in the game and thankful that a small portion of these fees help me. Make sure that we speak about this so there's an awareness. If and when your child gets injured this year, ensure that you fill out the form that's on Alberta Soccer's website. It has to be filled out within 30 days of injury. Otherwise, you're not able to access the insurance that you all pay for within that per player registration fee. You must use your personal insurance if you have that first, and then the Alberta Soccer insurance kicks in after that. And we know that physio and rehab expenses add up very quickly, and that personal insurance expenses and really kitty of money gets exhausted quite quickly sometimes. So make sure, even if you think, oh, it's just a minor injury, you at least submit it so that there's the paperwork there if you need to go back and file something. All right, I'll check the chat one more time in terms of Q&A. Now there's another question. Is it possible to increase the facility fee allocation so that we can work towards raising more money quickly to get more fields? It's a tremendous question. I can always bring that back to the executive director. They keep me as far away from the money as possible. But recommendations like that I can always bring back to them and discuss. Our fees and our player fees are voted on and approved by our membership, which essentially is our clubs. So your clubs are actually the ones that vote on what that player fee is. They approve that. They approve our budgets. They approve pretty well everything that we do. So if you want that allocation changed and you think that that's important, we believe it's important as well. We believe that, if we don't have a place to play, then we're going to have to come up with some very creative solutions to deliver the game to everyone. But if that's important to you, then continue to advocate to your clubs, advocate to us, advocate to as I've said earlier, the municipal governments and even provincial governments. We try to do a decent job at forming relationships with city councilors and city planners to try to ensure that soccer is front of mind when they're developing these kinds of plans. What we do know is within the next few years, there is an intention from the city of Calgary to be developing a minimum of 2 covered turf fields. What the timelines are for those? Well, one was supposed to be completed, I believe, next year. Ground hasn't even been dug yet, so obviously delayed with some of those. And there are clubs within this city that are actively working to be building a facility as well right now. So with those two, with a club facility and with Calgary Soccer Center redoing their grass outdoor field into a turf and bubble dome, fingers crossed, if funding comes through and if, I know I'm saying a lot of ifs, but if things get going, the landscape and the face of Calgary soccer can look drastically different within the next 3 to 4 years. Um, and honestly, that's quite quick within the game. And I know that there's probably people here that their kids are U17 or their kids are U19s, and they're saying, well, that's not going to be any benefit to us. And I actually believe it still will be a benefit to them because it'll give more access to men's and women's leagues. It'll give more access to co-ed leagues. It'll give more access to them to come back and coach in a great environment, in a great facility, and help them to become better coaches or potentially referees as well. So it will help. Will it help with their immediate playing? No, it won't. And these are the constraints that we deal with. These are the constraints that we continue to try and find solutions for, and continue to try and find partners to work with to be developing facilities. So with that, I'll leave you with this. I'll leave you with a quick video, really as just the final kind of take home message. And really, so many things start here. Community starts here, development starts here, passion, excitement, connection, like social development, life skills, everything can start here. It's just about the mentality and the lens that we take to apply that within the training environments, within the match day environments, within the car rides home. So I'd encourage you to think about, how do we contribute positively to the environment, soccer environment, but also our physical environment. But then also, are my kids and are my players experiencing a great environment as well? Are they having a good time within the game? Are they playing with friends? Are they progressing through the game if they want to? This is a beautiful game. It's called the beautiful game, and I really appreciate you all taking time tonight to be a part of this conversation, to be a part of this town hall, and to be engaged within the game. You could literally be anywhere in the world doing anything right now, and I respect and I'm very grateful that you're here with me tonight to find out information, to engage, and to really push things forward, hopefully. I'll leave this up on the screen as I answer a few questions that were pre-submitted as well. You can connect with us on any of our socials. There's an info box that you can email at any time. Some of you might have my email. You'll know that I'm average, I think, at getting back, but I try to get back to everyone. And there's also a phone number that you can call as well that's directly into our office to speak with our staff should you need. I'm going to just pull up some of the questions. Just bear with me for 2 seconds. Ba-ba-ba-bum. There they are. Well, question one was really just a comment, just says consistency and officiating. So consistency in officiating is a difficult thing to achieve. Each official is going to referee slightly different. Each individual is an individual. Each individual has a different day that they've walked in from, and they're going to officiate slightly differently. I think if we approach officials in a common way, I think that we can probably get consistency more often. If we can engage with them in a positive, constructive manner, or not engage at all. It's that simple. They are not going to be the ones who determine a player's experience on the day. And we, as adult role models within the game, can have some sort of emotional regulation to help that official have some consistency. We know that the quality and quantity of officials, as I've mentioned already, needs to increase, and we're actively trying to work on that right now. The second question here is divisions. Why aren't we, in brackets, a club, 2-year age groups or 2-year groups? Age groups are getting challenging for clubs in teen girls, you will see a dramatic difference in terms of the gender gap within our boys stream and our girls stream. It is becoming alarming, unbelievably concerning, and we need to be taking action 5 years ago in terms of implementing strategies to try to retain young girls in the game and try and help them progress. We know that some clubs do this a little better than others, and we know that sometimes we have to combine age groups or tiers just to make the games happen for these young women. It's a very suboptimal experience, and we are trying to do the absolute best that we can. What I would ask is, I would ask you to ask your club, do you have a women and girls strategy? Do you have a plan to try and keep women and girls within the game, within soccer? Do you have a different lens that you're using when you're designing your female and girls programming? We know that boys and girls register and stay in sport for different reasons. And yet we continue to apply a very male-dominated lens onto the female side of the game. Is that contributing to lack of enjoyment and lack of retention within it? These are the questions that we ask a lot. These are the solutions we're trying to find. And trust me, it's not for lack of trying and not for wanting girls to be involved and trying to create a great environment for these girls to be involved in. There's a question, what's the plan for next season to assure a fair competition? How to manage the competition to those teams that feel need more challenge? Well, I've already chatted about how the schedule is made and how teams get placed. Your clubs submit the teams, they put them into a league, and then we sit down and we look together in a collaborative manner to see, is that team going to have a good level of competition there? If they're not, well, then we move them at that point. There's also a moment in the season that's called tier movement deadline. And really internally, what that is an opportunity for our clubs to say, woof, we've misplaced this team. We thought they were in the right spot, but you know what? They actually need to be moved up or they need to be moved down. And we can swap them with another team in another league. Now, what that does is it causes a lot of chaos in terms of the scheduling and in terms of people's life planning. But those are some of the processes that we have to ensure meaningful competition. I wouldn't use the word fair, but meaningful would be maybe a better way of describing it. Someone's asking for dates, holiday breaks, etc. Well, there's a Christmas break, and other than that, we go full time. No, there's long weekend breaks as well. There's Christmas break, obviously. All of those will be published within our program handbook that you can find on our website. There's a comment here and kind of a question. Are there any other institutions who can offer support for financially challenged families, newcomers, single parents, etc., other than Kids Sport and Jumpstart? To my knowledge, I don't know. I don't know, but this is a question that I'm going to be taking back with me and looking into over the next week or two to try and find some of that support and try and find some ideas for families. We know that the game continues to get more expensive. We're trying to keep costs as low as possible and under control. And I know that our clubs are trying to do a great job as well with that. It's a challenging environment. It's a very challenging environment in terms of the world that we live in right now, with the cost of our houses, our food, everything skyrocketing right now. So is there a way that we can keep our sport accessible to anyone, regardless of their financial situation? I believe there is, and I think that we will have some opportunities for that coming in the very near future. We're actively working internally at CMSA on some initiatives to address some of that as well. Any additional turf fields being built or added to Calgary? I chatted about that already. At what point will CMSA do away with single birth years? This is not girls, or there is not girls to begin with single birth years in bio, but are not helping. I'm assuming there's not enough birth years there. Perhaps there'd be no need for U17 to U19 without single birth years. The single birth year piece is an interesting one because obviously we see an AYSL effect with teams leaving, and then our U14 and onward kind of ages becoming a bit lighter. Um, we we also know that when clubs don't do a really great job at their grassroots players, I talked about that earlier, their U12s and below, and cementing that love of the game and really making sure that these people and these players that are involved, they identify as soccer players. They have a passion for the game. They continue through it. Um, we know that if they're not putting an emphasis there, that it becomes difficult to have teams later on. We had double year age groups previously, about 2.5 years ago, in CMSA. And what we had is we would have U15 Tier 1A and we'd have U15 Tier 1B. And you know what Tier 1B was? All of the U14 Tier 1 teams. So why didn't we just call them U14 Tier 1 at that point? There's a lot of other things that have changed from that point. And to say that single birth years are the cause of lighter age groups, I can't really buy that when we work through that league alignment process with our clubs, and then we go, woof, there isn't a ton of hypothetically U16 tier 2 girls. There's 3 teams in there. Well, where did they need to move? Well, maybe they need to move into the U17 tier 2s. Maybe one of them needs to go to U16 tier 3. Maybe one of them goes to U16 tier 1 because that's where they are. So the double year piece doesn't necessarily solve all of those issues because in some situations it just happens naturally anyway at that point, and that is our solution, is to do that after the fact. What's being done to address field shortage issues in the city? I feel like I've chatted about that. If not, please populate the chat. Will there be an indoor handbook? It's been published for months. When will practices be during the week? You have to talk to your club about that. And players should have ample time and access to the facility for warm-up before games to prevent injuries. This was a problem last year, but especially during COVID play. Totally. Take COVID aside, that was a completely different situation. We have actually increased, so get this, wrap your mind around this. We've had a 16% increase in registration, but we've actually increased the field time allotment for our U13s plus, that they're now a 60-minute game time, but in a 75-minute block. So that 15 minutes is warm-up time now. That used to be 5 to 10 minutes max, and we've managed to increase that to 15 minutes. Someone on the call is going to say 15 minutes isn't enough. Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. If you were to look at the studies that are being done through the Sport Injury Prevention Research Clinic at the University of Calgary that we work quite closely with, and their shred concussions research study that they're doing right now, their neuromuscular training warm-up is not going to be done in 15 minutes. I had a meeting with them 2 days ago to explain the realities of our environment, and they were actually very thankful and amazed that we were actually even giving them 15 minutes. Now, giving them, it makes it sound like it's generous. No, 15 minutes is the baseline. That's what we need to be offering. But we come into a challenge with facility and field bookings and field allocations, and also building limit capacity, building like fire code regulations for those buildings that don't actually allow extra people in there to have a half an hour warm up before a game. So totally agree. Is it perfect? No. Is it a step in the right direction? We feel like we're making a step in the right direction by being able to extend that time block, even with a 16% increase in registration this year. Those were the pre-submitted questions. I see that there's some within the chat. I'm going to look to the Q&A first. There's none in there, so just into the chat. With some age groups only having 2 divisions on the girls' side, older age groups, any thoughts about going to U13, 15, 17 age groupings would align with provincials too? I feel like we've already chatted about that a little bit in terms of that. with single year age groups, it actually gives more opportunity to find the right level for these teams as well. Whether they're an older age team that might be a little bit more new to soccer, dropping down into a U14, say, age group, it gives us more flexibility and more opportunity to find teams closer competition. Question on when is that tier movement deadline? You've asked me a great question. I don't have that date on the top of my mind right now. What I can do is direct you to, again, that program handbook on our website. Or if you want, shoot an email to info@calgaryminersoccer.com and we'll be able to provide that date for you. There's 1,000 dates swirling around in my mind, and I don't want to give you the wrong date tonight. There's maybe a solution there for newcomers and low-income families in terms of the Umoja Mosaic community. I believe that's Jean-Claude that runs that. He's an unbelievable man and runs a tremendous program. I didn't think about them and about that program. You might want to reach out to there. And then Gerardo as well says clubs help players with financial limitations directly. I do know of clubs that will reduce or subsidize fees. There are a ton of clubs within Calgary that if you express that this is something that you need, they will work with you. And as part of some of those club licensing pieces, within certain club licensing, they're not actually allowed to turn players away due to financial limitations. They have to find those strategies and have programs internally within their club to achieve that level of club licensing. So, great point from Gerardo, that your club might be able to help you as well. I know some clubs will do things like a bit of a volunteer piece where a reduced fee, but then there's an expectation of some sort of volunteer hours with the club as well. I know some clubs that if you coach, they will subsidize the fee for your child as well. Like there's a lot of different pieces, and each club is kind of unique in what they do. There really is no standard answer for that one or one size fits all across the clubs, but a tremendous point from Gerardo. So thank you for that. That is all of the questions. I see that 12 of us made it the distance. It might have been a long distance for some or felt that way anyway. I appreciate all of your time tonight. I know that we've gone over time by a little bit, but thank you. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for taking an interest. Thank you for being passionate about the game to support your children. Or to maybe support yourselves if you're one of the players on this call tonight. So with that, I'll stick around for another couple of minutes if there's any kind of last minute questions that filter in. But if not, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much again for spending some time with us. And we look forward to seeing you on the pitch very, very shortly. Thanks, DR. Okay. Aaron and Rosemary, we might have fallen asleep, so I'm going to leave the meeting and end it there. Wish you adieu and have a great evening. Thanks so much.